Hello and welcome to the first episode of Series 3 of The Luxury of Choice, a B2B technical sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan, I'm a director at George James and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. So if you're new here, welcome. This is a fortnightly show where each show we discuss various aspects of technical sales, sales management and leadership in the fields of life sciences, process, lab and precision industrial sales. We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments and topics and suggestions from our listeners, and I'll share details of how to contact the show at the end of this episode. So on the panel today, I have two fellow trainers from the team, Prue Layton and Christian Walter. So Prue, how are you doing today?
Good, really, but I'm feeling a bit out of practice, to be honest, Steve, because we've had a bit of a summer break.
I know, we've had a little break, haven't we?
Yeah, so I had to dust everything off and sort of get ready, which is probably appropriate for what we're going to talk about today. But no, I'm okay.
Beautiful segue. Thank you for that. Yeah, I've had to dust things off and change the tubes and the valves and the in the mixer and all that stuff. If you're younger than 40, you won't know what I'm talking about. Christian, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I didn't have a summer break, so I'm not rusty at all. If anything, a little bit rushed off my feet. But hey, no rest for the wicked.
No, absolutely. I think Prue, to be fair, was talking about the podcast rather than necessarily our workload. But yeah, we did have a summer break for the podcast, but we're back raring to go. And we've got lots of great topics and great guests for our third series of podcasting. Who'd have thought that? Anyway, so let's get on to today's topic. And today's topic has got quite a cryptic title. And the title is Why the Sales Call Starts Before the Call. So I guess really what we're talking about here is the importance of preparation and how we all need to be prepared. So guys, welcome your thoughts from either of you at any stage during the discussion read. We'll start with you, Prue. So what do you think this means as a topic? What was when we put this out as a heading, what was your first thoughts on it?
Kind of went straight to the boring stuff, actually, of preparation. And then I sort of thought a bit deeper. That's like classic me, really. And kind of the motivation to prepare well. And I really was thinking about, I think there's three areas that we have to think about before we have the event. Okay. So we often think in sales that the customer facing time is the event, but it is an important event, but the bit beforehand and the bit after, and today we're going to do the bit beforehand.
Okay, and we will come back to the bit after.
Yeah, it's also an event, I think. It's as important as the time you have with the customer. And probably to my failing as a young salesperson, that thinking getting the appointment was the most important thing, but it isn't. So it's kind of, as I usually do with my coffee, having a bit of a think. And I think there are three areas that we have to think about what happens before the actual call. I think there's the mental preparation. Mentally, how are we prepared? I think there's the kind of physical preparation. Right. It's a bit tough out there at the moment, isn't it? Everyone looks so miserable. So, I kind of think that we have to be like enthusiastic and kind of smiley and all that, bring a bit of light into people's life, whether we're going to do it on Teams or on the phone or face to face. And I think there's the technical preparation as well. And I think we overdo the technical preparation bit. Being technical folk, we get very good at the technical preparation.
It's our comfort zone, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the other bits really that I really think are important. I can be technically perfect, but if I'm a bit grumpy when I turn up because I couldn't find a parking place and I was late and I haven't got my umbrella. I was out with a salesperson the other day and we had to walk from one building to the other. Neither of us had an umbrella and we got absolutely drenched. We looked like drowned rats. But there's this whole thing, I think, that makes the whole experience for yourself and actually for the person that you're engaging with so much more valuable. That was my initial thoughts, Steve.
There's some great topics there. So did anybody then, in that case, if he's getting into the right frame of mind, Christian, did you ever sort of play your favourite soundtrack in the car before you went to see a customer? A bit of AC/DC or something, on the way there? Anything like that?
That's an interesting one, but I want to come back to that later. Can I park that? I think, Pro, it's really interesting that we over-prepare the technical side. I agree with that. And sometimes the experienced salespeople almost look at the preparation for the other aspects as a sign of weakness. I can fly by the wheel. I'm good enough.
That's
I'm experienced enough. I can do this without preparation. And I think it never works. It's really a sign of arrogance, maybe a sign of overconfidence, and it's good to be humble and realize, actually, I need to prepare myself as if it was a job interview, and
That's
then I will
interesting.
succeed.
Yeah. So, in other words, we're so confident, we're so good, we can just turn up and just wow the customer with our personality and our expertise when we don't really have to prepare anything. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that,
I kind of get Christian's comment here. If you've had more meetings than you can ever imagine, and you think, I need to prepare for this simple meeting, you can almost see it as a sign of weakness. I get that, Christian.
Okay,
It's like, why would I have to prepare like I did 5 years ago? Because I've done this so many times. So it must mean that I'm not as good as I should be. But it's not a sign of weakness. It's a real strength.
Interesting. Is that what you meant, Christian? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what I meant. The really good salespeople. I mean, there are experienced salespeople who are really, really good. They will prepare every call. Then there are experienced salespeople who maybe think they're good, and maybe they go in an overconfident manner and actually don't accomplish what they should have accomplished. And then there are the inexperienced reps who have had great training from George James, probably. And then, they prepare well for the calls. And, I like to think of myself as a Boy Scout still. I used to do scouting as a leader as well. And of course, the motto is be prepared. I think if you're prepared, you're just in a better situation. You're mentally at ease. You have your plan in order, what you want to talk about. And the whole call will be a lot more successful.
Interesting. Yeah. I was never a Boy Scout, but still. So let's look at this in a bit more specifics. What kind of things are we looking to prepare then? So I'm going to see, let's say hypothetically, I'm going to see a customer, never met them before, never been to the company before, but he's made an inquiry through the website, she's made an inquiry through the website. I've got an appointment. I'm going to go and see them. What kind of things are we looking to prepare? Any thoughts?
Of course, you start off with your research, don't you? It's never been easy. It's never been easier, has it?
No.
It's never been easy. In fact, it's probably a bit overwhelming now. But I think, checking them out on whatever platform is appropriate, whether it's the website, whether it's their bio, whether it's LinkedIn, check them out and check the business out that you're going to. Sometimes, if you're going to go and visit a large business, you might think, oh, well, I know this big pharmaceutical company. But what's quite interesting sometimes is to look at their latest news page. So, turning up at a large corporate organisation and not knowing who they are would look at best naive. But I've had some interesting chats with people when I've looked at the latest news page, and that corridor walk when you walk from reception to where you're going to have the chat just might mention, oh, I noticed on your website that this is happening. And they'll often look at you and go, how do you know that? And I looked at your latest news page. And most of us never look at our own company websites. That's
true. That's so true.
So, it's just this subtle message to the customer that you're prepared. You're not stalky, but you are prepared. So I think that do your research.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to take very long. It's headlines, guys, but don't forget to do that.
Absolutely. Christian, any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, you can reveal your ignorance very well by asking kind of a relatively simple question. What is it you're doing here? I don't think that's appropriate anymore these days. You can actually look that up beforehand. And you know that they're doing agricultural research, for example, and then you can maybe ask a more specific question. What kind of agricultural research are you doing? Are you looking at crop protection, for example? Or and then all of a sudden the customer perceives you more at eye level. And I think that's the goal of preparation in a way. Yeah. If I'm well prepared, I can talk to the customer at the same level. I'm not this humble salesperson who is desperate for a sale, but I'm actually already in a different position.
Yeah. Yeah. You're differentiating yourself from lots of other people out there who just come in and pitch product, basically. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. just a point on the LinkedIn thing, and I'm going to go here, Prue, because this is my favourite topic. But
dished it up for you, Steve.
Like set up a pass with an open goal. So if you are going to look up somebody on LinkedIn, just remember they're probably going to look you up as well. So the importance of thinking about your own profile and your own picture and all those things. But that's another topic for another day. Okay, what are the things that we're going to prepare then? Just either of you, just an open discussion. What other things might we prepare?
I think the other thing I think about is it's really clear when I've managed to secure the appointment on whatever format it is. And I think preparation should happen whether you've got a phone call, a planned Teams event, or a planned face-to-face event. They're all critical engagements with customers at any stage of the journey. But I think one of the things we know why we want that engagement. Well, we know what we want to get out of it, and that's important to think about. But also, I think about what value are you going to bring for the customer. If you kind of think ahead about, after this meeting, what's the customer going to walk away valuing that I brought to the table? And I think that's also really important, because that's hard to bring up spontaneously. I think you have to plan this value that I'm going to bring. And it takes a bit of thought, and it might take a bit of discussion as well. But I hear a lot, and I'm sure you guys do as well, that it's really hard to get time with customers these days. It's harder and harder because they feel they can learn so much just Googling and learning without you. So as an effective salesperson operating in these environments, I think we have to bring a bit more. And I think that's the customer walking away going, God, that was interesting, actually. And it's how are you going to do that? What are the range of things that you could have that pique that interest in the customer about separating you from maybe other people they've engaged with?
And I guess to do that, Christian, you need to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the customer as much as you can, really, to understand their world, really.
I mean, to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, I think is always a good idea. And to, even if it's just mentally, think about the day of a lab manager, the stresses they have, the worries they have, the concerns they have, and then think about what value could you actually bring them that goes beyond just product information or beyond just solving an immediate concern or answering a question about your instrument that the person might be interested in. I have one of my favorite salespersons I ever worked with. I actually met him yesterday, so he's quite fresh.
Right. It wasn't me, no.
He's a general manager now. Of course, the good guys get promoted. And he always used to challenge the customer as well and said, hey, actually, I think the way you're doing this is not the right way. I've done similar, I've worked with similar labs and they follow a different approach. And wouldn't you like to try this? And that brings value. It may be a little bit disruptive, yes, but it brings value. It shows a different perspective. And but of course, you can only do that if you prepare. You need to know what this lab is doing. You need to know which of your other visits might be relevant for this particular customer. And he was very, very good at that, and I'm sure he still is.
Interesting.
And he'll know who he is.
He will, yes.
If you want to write into the show, no, not really. What I want to do in a minute is actually look at some specific examples. If you've got any examples of sort of good or bad preparation you can think of, that would be great. But just something that popped into my head, and this is a theme that's going to come up a lot in this series, and actually I want to look at doing some specific episodes around it. But is there a role here for AI in preparation? Can AI help us? The salesperson that says, I don't have time for all this stuff, which I don't agree with, but still, is there something that AI can do to help people here?
So I think go on, Prue, I can come after, but yeah.
Absolutely. I think I was working with a large company recently, and, I've been, what I'm like, Steve, I'm a bit like, for goodness sake, don't give me all this newfangled stuff. But I have to say.
Like a podcast.
Yeah, like a podcast. I have to say that AI is astonishing.
Yeah,
one of the reasons that you get a pushback when you talk to salespeople about is I don't have time. One of the things that AI can really do for you is to give you like great summaries of stuff and look in lots of different areas. So I saw an example where the AI can look at the whole of the CRM of a multi-divisional company and look at the engagement of that person across the business. And it can also do a quick scan of their socials as well, and then a quick scan of their people they've worked with, collaborators, previous businesses, and it can trawl the internet so fast and give you this great summary to give you a little bit of insight and maybe start to think about where you might add value in terms of the large amount of information's there, but giving you the summary of it. And I thought, I was blown away really as a massive skeptic, because everyone knows I am, of things until they're proven. But I was like, yeah, you're supposed to look at we know we should look at our CRM. Yes, of course we do. We know we should maybe talk to our colleagues. Yes, we know we should. But sometimes we just run out of time. And I think there is going to be an absolute place as AI develops. Yes, we should look at LinkedIn. Maybe we should look elsewhere. But, the ability of that to be condensed into a bullet point list, which is the thing I like about AI. I use it to summarize long emails now because I don't have to read them all.
TLDR, I think they call that, don't they? Yeah.
I think
the hip kids, yeah.
I think, whether you're a tech bro or not, you should really embrace AI and really start to see how it can give you that quick bullet point list to give you areas to explore.
And without giving any confidentials away, what was the app? Is there anything you can share on that? Or
I don't know what it was, because you'd know what it was, Steve, if you'd been there. Because you, I'm like, I don't know.
I'd completely geeked out, wouldn't I? Yeah, because it was shiny and new. Yeah. Christian, your thought.
So I think all the rage now is agentic AI. And
it's what? Sorry?
If you can tell you make your AI an agent, you tell
it
is for you. What's its role? What its role is? What its tasks are? What you want from it? And I think the better you prompt that, the better you explain that, the better results you can actually get. I've been talking to an acquaintance of mine who has a system that helps salespeople to find leads by trawling the internet, like you said, by finding matches to the ideal customer profile, and then by giving the sales rep a summary of these people from the social profiles, from the company, what they might be interested in, etc. So that's for a first outreach. It's quite clever. I think it helps to prepare the first outreach phone calls. When it comes to the when you actually have a meeting with the customer, and maybe even on-site meeting, I believe, yes, we can use AI to make it quicker and easier and faster to do the preparation, but I still think it's our duty to do it ourselves and to really understand, because
to own it as well, as much as anything.
Our time is precious, the customer's time is precious, and we can invest that half hour to really understand, who am I talking to? What might be their big goals? What is the company trying to achieve? What is what is important? What is relevant for them? And I think we can utilize AI for that, like Prue suggested, in an agentic way. But I think the responsibility still lies with us.
You can see a scenario where, we just press a button that says AI prep and you get the stuff back, and then you think, okay, I'm prepared now. But you've still got to, you've got to own the content, you've got to read it, you've got to be invested in it, I guess, really. Otherwise, we're just doing lip service, aren't we, really? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think.
How am I going to use this condensed information to actually be a warm human being in front of the customer? Because, that's what I want to be. But it gives me some really good pointers, I think. It's not a substitute. It gives me some ideas about where to go with the customer, which will put them at ease, will give them some good conversations and make them feel relaxed.
Yeah, because we don't want to become sales bots, do we? We are people. No. People buy from people.
But if you wanted an example for a bad preparation.
Yeah, go for it.
I give you one. And it's actually not that old. I was tasked to do a voice of customer project for one of my consulting customers.
Okay.
And I traveled through the Midwest of the US in 2023, and I ended up at this clinical research company or clinical testing company, and they were using GCMS and LCMS for all sorts of proteomics and weird and wonderful.
Okay, sounds good.
Chemistry, very fascinating. the idea was it's just the voice of customer call to understand what are they doing, how are they doing, what do we need to put in the next generation of instruments. What it turned out I walked in and then they said, we go to this meeting room, through the lab, into a meeting room. I said, okay. And then there are 18 people sitting around a huge conference table. And I'm saying, okay. And then it turns out that they were quite unhappy with the instruments of that particular company at that particular moment. There were some issues. And each of these persons at the conference table was a stakeholder and had some grievances. And they thought that I was the guy to listen to their grievances and find solutions. And so, yes, it was really unexpected. Could I have prepared better? Yes. I could have asked better within the company I was working for. Hey, what's going on at this place? Are they happy? Yeah. Are they satisfied? So this is, for me, a clear failure on my part. I believe I recovered the situation by taking great notes and, follow up with an email and decided on action points. And I think the customer is now very, very happy and the problem is solved. It was recovered, luckily, but it's a sign of being unprepared, because I thought, well, this is just about this voice of customer, but actually I could have anticipated that other topics will also come out.
Well done.
The customer the customer definitely had a voice and wanted
18 of them.
to listen to it.
They did. And I think I listened. That was in my defense.
Wow.
I was just remembering probably one of my worst preps I ever did. It's I used to work for a company, and one of the things that we could do was silver analysis. And at the time, it was when photography was all film-based. And so there were lots and lots of companies that would develop your photographs. And one of the things that you use is silver bromide when you develop photographs. And there was a way to measure the effluents in these labs, so that you could recover to say whether it was worth recovering silver because it had high value. So we developed a really nice methodology for it. So I was there with this great methodology and I was right, I'm going to hit every one of my customers who are in this space. So I managed to get into the ones that you think about, Kodak, Boots, all of those. And I also made an appointment with Polaroid. You can see where this is going.
I can, yes. So there's photographers on this call.
I turned up with my fantastic app to recover all the silver from their film development, and they just looked at me like I was a complete idiot.
Yeah.
They were just north of London. I can't remember where it was. And I was with the technical people. I just hadn't thought about how Polaroids work. So I had this great pitch, which fell really badly. So head down, left, never went back again.
Okay. And I guess for the younger members of the or the listeners to the show, I guess they don't use silver.
It's cool now.
I know they are. Yeah,
Polaroid,
yeah. They're not Polaroids. I think they're Instax. But anyway, let's not do photography. I'll discuss another podcast that I do. But I guess the moral of that one is they don't use silver in instant cameras. No,
they don't. And there's no processing; they're instantly done. So
exactly. Yeah.
God, did I look like a fool? Yes, absolutely, look like a fool.
I'm trying to think of some horror stories of my own, really, but I can't think of any that leap to mind. I know of way back in my weighing days, Christian, so you and I have a common background in this. I know a long time ago, one of the guys who sold balances in the same team as me had to go and do a demonstration of a new top pan balance in this high-tech, sterile clean room for a pharmaceutical company. And the day before, he'd been to a seafood company. And when he got into the clean room, everything was sterile and everything, and he got his balance out, and there was a prawn on the top of the pan sitting there looking at everybody. So they weren't best pleased. But anyway, let's not get too much into the horror stories, otherwise we could be here all day. I guess coming back to the actual doing the preparation, for me, it's never wanting to come out of a call saying I should have asked that. Why didn't I know? Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I ask that question? Because you may never get the chance again, might you? Depending on how the call goes, really.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Go on, Christian.
Spot
I would
on,
suggest
Steve.
to use the Namtzer framework to prepare for a call,
Okay. Which is our qualification tool, of course.
N for need. Try and appreciate. Try and anticipate the need. What could it be that they're doing? What could be their? Why would they be looking in one of these instruments? A for authority. Who's in charge? Who's involved? Who am I meeting? Are there likely to be other people in the room as well? What might be their drivers? What might be their interest? And then just go through the framework with the T, the C, and the R.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and if you've not heard our episode on qualification, it's back in our previous. I think it was series 2. We did qualification. I'll lose track now. We've done so many, Prue. Yeah,
we have. Actually, I was at an event recently, and I talked about the podcast, and somebody Googled it straight away. And they said, "Oh my goodness, look at all these episodes."
I know.
And impressive, isn't it? But anyway, when I go on a qualification call, I still write down the qualification that I'm going to do, because it's so easy to get sidetracked in a great conversation. And like you say, Steve, you get to the end of the time that you've got available, you get the whatever it is, and you go, never got past that. And so it really encourages you to bring value to you and the customer to these contact points when you are purposeful without dominating what you're going to do. And if we're under pressure in calls and we're unprepared, I think what we do is we start to dominate the conversations. So we tend to go into talking mode rather than listening mode, because our poor preparation makes us do that. When under pressure, what do? I see it. We start pitching.
Yeah.
Because we've done lots of we've pitched our product, we've pitched our company, we've pitched our solution, and it's real comfort zone for us.
Yeah.
So what preparation helps you do? Preparation helps you be in listening mode, actually, and not dominate the conversations.
That's a great thought.
In any customer contact, information is power. I so believe that. The more information you have, the better positioned you are to move this forward.
Absolutely.
The more compelling it can be. I mean, sometimes we hear information we wish we hadn't heard.
That's true, though.
We can deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what preparation allows you to do is speak less and listen more.
That's a super thought, really. Yeah. Just sitting down and writing some questions down, even with my appalling handwriting, which I can't read, but actually writing down things I want to ask the customer so you don't forget that all-important killer question. Yeah, great point. Christian, your thoughts on that?
Maybe one question you can always ask that helps you sometimes to recover from forgetting a question beforehand is, I always like to ask at the end of a conversation, is there anything else I should have asked? Have I forgotten to talk about the specific aspect? And then at least the customer can think about it. And often this opens up a whole new conversation, actually.
Yeah, super point. Yeah. I used to use that in interviews, actually, when I used to interview people. At the end, is there a question you thought we were going to ask you and we didn't? Oh, okay. So let's ask the question then. Again, that's another topic for another day, really. So I guess my final thought on this really is I've never, in my 30 odd years in sales, I've never left a customer call saying, I wish I'd prepared less. I've often said, I wish I'd prepared more, but I've never said, I wish I'd prepared less.
No, I totally agree. I mean, even for anything I do, I just prepare. I prepared today. It's just habit, actually. It's a fabulous habit about that prep, and don't skip it, because if you've driven an hour or whatever you've done and you're not prepared, what a disappointment the whole thing's going to be for you, because you'll just have to tidy up later.
And more importantly, for the customer. Yeah.
This idea of being of value to the customer is so important, because customers can read really well. So reading what's in your brochure on your website is not great, but bringing something out of the meeting, thinking about how you're going to do that, is so important.
Good point. Any final thoughts on this topic from either of you before we wrap up this week's show?
Yeah, I would like to maybe go back to what I've said first time. I still believe that experience and comfort zone can make us forget the preparation, or
completely.
make us neglect the preparation. And I don't think it's smart. Yes, better experienced sales reps can probably wing it a bit easier. But I still believe that the customer will see through it and will be disappointed and will feel that the meeting had less value than it should have.
Absolutely.
And that's not what we want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And in these days of ever, what's the phrase I want? Technology getting more and more similar, more difficult to differentiate on technology or on product, more Me Too, everything is getting similar. What can differentiate us is actually what we do rather than what the product does. And being different to all those other salespeople, listening to what the customer is saying rather than just pitching product is so important. Yeah, great thoughts. Of course, once we come out of our great call, having prepared fully, we then need to think about what happens afterwards. But that's another topic for another day. we won't go into that one today. So, Prue, Christian, thank you both for your thoughts on this today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's coming up to the weekend. We're recording this on a Friday. And if you've enjoyed this episode of The Luxury Choice, dear listener, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app. If you use Apple or Spotify, then do give us a review, ideally a 5-star review. It does help us in lots of weird and wonderful ways. We're always interested in thoughts for future episodes, comments, questions, feedback, anything like that. There is an email address, which is just podcast@georgejames-training.com. That's podcast@georgejames-. There is also now a LinkedIn group for the podcast as well. So if you search for The Luxury of Choice in the LinkedIn group app on LinkedIn, of course, then you'll find it. It's a place where you can hang out with like-minded people, ask questions, comment on episodes, suggest things, and perhaps get to know the members of the team a bit more as well. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with another episode. Until then, happy selling, and we talk to you soon.